There's a version of you that exists in a parallel timeline. Same brain, same work ethic, same discipline with budgets and spreadsheets. But that version of you retired at 52, owns property in 3 cities, sends their kids to college without loans, never once felt the cold sweat of checking their bank account before buying groceries. The difference between you and that person isn't talent. It isn't intelligence. It isn't even luck. It's timing. And the worst part? The entire financial advice industry has spent the last 40 years pretending timing doesn't exist. There's a version of you that exists in a parallel timeline. Same brain, same work ethic, same discipline with budgets and spreadsheets. But that version of you retired at 52, owns property in 3 cities, sends their kids to college without loans, never once felt the cold sweat of checking their bank account before buying groceries. The difference between you and that person isn't talent. It isn't intelligence. It isn't even luck. It's timing. And the worst part? The entire financial advice industry has spent the last 40 years pretending timing doesn't exist. Now let's talk about what happened while you were saving. Between 1970 and 2020, the median home price in the United States increased by roughly 1,600%. Wages increased by about 700%. That gap? That's not a rounding error. That's a structural fracture. And it's not just housing. College tuition has increased 1,200% since 1980. Healthcare costs have risen over 600%. Childcare in many cities now costs more annually than in-state college tuition. Meanwhile, the things that got cheaper, televisions, smartphones, fast fashion, are the things we're told we waste money on. You're being blamed for buying the only things you can afford. But here's where it gets darker. The people who tell you to budget harder, to skip lattes, to invest early, many of them bought homes in 1995. They bought into markets before the explosion. They refinanced at 3% interest rates. They watched their net worth double while they slept, not because they were brilliant, but because they were born earlier. This is the part they don't say out loud. The advice they're giving you worked for them not because it was good advice, but because the economy rewarded their cohort in ways it will never reward yours. And they genuinely don't understand the difference. Let's run 2 scenarios. Same person, different decades. Scenario A, you're 25 in 1985. You make $30,000 a year. You rent a 1-bedroom apartment for $400 a month. You save aggressively. In 3 years, you've got $15,000 saved. You buy a house for $65,000 with a 9% interest rate, which feels brutal, but you make it work. Over the next 15 years, that house triples in value. You refinance when rates drop. By the time you're 45, you have $200,000 in equity, your mortgage payment is less than rent for a studio apartment, and you're on track to retire comfortably. Scenario B, you're 25 in 2015. You make $50,000 a year, which sounds better but adjusted for inflation is roughly the same. You rent a 1-bedroom for $1,800 a month. You save aggressively. In 3 years, you've got $22,000 saved. But the house you wanted to buy for $280,000 is now $350,000. You're priced out. You keep renting. Rent increases every year. You're 45 in 2035. You have no equity. Your rent is now $3,000 a month. Your retirement account exists, but it's not enough. You did everything right. Same person, same choices, different game. The system didn't fail you. The system did exactly what it was designed to do. It rewarded asset owners and penalized wage earners. And if you started your adult life after 2008, you are, by definition, late to the asset party. So what actually happened? In the 1980s, a series of policy decisions quietly restructured the American economy. Interest rates dropped. Credit became cheap. Borrowing became easier. Investors began buying homes not to live in, but to rent out or flip. Wall Street securitized mortgages. Housing stopped being shelter and became an asset class. At the same time, wages stagnated. Unions weakened. Pensions disappeared, replaced by 401ks that put all the risk on individual workers. College became unaffordable without debt. Healthcare costs exploded. The result? A massive upward transfer of wealth. The people who owned assets, homes, stocks, land, got richer. The people who only had their labor got squeezed. And then came 2008, the financial crisis, the worst recession since the Great Depression. Millions lost homes. Unemployment spiked. And what did the government do? It bailed out the banks. It dropped interest rates to near zero. It flooded the system with cheap money. Housing prices collapsed briefly, then roared back even higher. If you had capital in 2010, you could buy. If you didn't, you watched from the sidelines as prices doubled again. Then 2020. Pandemic. Another crisis. Same playbook. Rates dropped again. Asset prices exploded again. The stock market hit record highs while 40 million people filed for unemployment. Every crisis, the people with assets get richer. Every recovery, the gap widens. This isn't a bug. It's the design. And here's the absurd part. While all this is happening, the financial advice stays the same. Max out your Roth IRA. Build an emergency fund. Invest in index funds. Buy a home as soon as possible. All good advice technically, but it assumes you have discretionary income. It assumes emergencies don't wipe you out. It assumes the market rewards patience and discipline equally across all generations. It doesn't. A 25-year-old investing in 1982 rode one of the greatest bull markets in history. A 25-year-old investing in 2000 saw their portfolio cut in half twice before they turned 30. A 25-year-old investing in 2024 is buying into a market at all-time highs with valuations that historically precede corrections. Same advice. Wildly different outcomes. And yet, when it doesn't work, we're told it's a personal failing. You didn't save enough. You didn't invest early enough. You bought the wrong things. Never mind that the goalposts moved. Never mind that the entire field tilted. So what do you do with this information? You can't unlearn it. You can't go back to blaming yourself for structural inequality. You can't pretend that discipline alone will fix what policy broke. But you also can't opt out. You still live in this economy. You still have to eat, pay rent, plan for a future that feels increasingly uncertain. Some people will tell you to invest anyway, to buy assets however you can, to play the game even though it's rigged, because not playing guarantees you lose. Others will tell you the system is beyond repair, that collapse is inevitable, that the only rational response is to prepare for a fundamentally different world. Both might be right. What's undeniable is this: you are not bad with money. You are navigating an economy designed to extract wealth from labor and concentrate it in assets. You are playing a game where the rules were written by people who already won. And the question isn't whether you're good enough to win. The question is whether the game itself is sustainable. Because every empire that built itself on this much inequality eventually had to answer that question. And history suggests the answer doesn't come peacefully.